Welcome to Buckets. I am your host, Brandon Anderson, coming to you live from our Tommy John home studios, here for a little Futures Friday fun with Jim Turvey. It's March now, of course. The madness comes soon, but NBA playoffs are only like a month away at this point, right? Where we're coming down the home stretch, about like 20 games left out of the 82. So we have reached the quarter pole. That's right. This is the quarter pole, not a quarter of the way into the season. Learn your horse racing, folks. This is a basketball podcast, though, not horse racing. We'll be coming to you hopefully every Friday here the rest of the regular season, me and Jim, to just hit some futures topics, do some big picture stuff, have a little fun along the way. Jim, welcome. What's up?
Yeah, I didn't have enough futures in my life, so I was like, I heard you were eyeing a future show. I was like, I got to be on there. Me and you are kicking around futures, basically every day. So I think this will be really fun. I'll try not to overlap too many takes from my my future Jays, and this will be my future Fridays. I'll have a very distinct futures outlook, and we both know there's enough of them to go around. So yeah, I'm excited to. You've already had some cool creative ideas. So I'm excited to join with one that you're leading off with today.
Yeah, so the goal is not necessarily to just run through all the futures again. We've already got that in the feed with the Future Jays episode Mondays each week. I want to do something a little creative. So kind of some thought process sort of things, some big picture looks, but still things that can make us think a little differently about the league, but still give us angles to then say, okay, well, how about that then? Is there a futures angle for that? Is there something to store away to maybe bet later if this ends up coming? So here's what we're doing today. Today, we are going to build the perfect NBA playoff bracket for the season. We're actually going to build two of them because I'm building one and Jim's building one. And we're not building the same one. Jim is going to build the perfect money-winning bracket for bettors. So that can be up to him however he wants it. I told him that could be set up the future you want to bet. That could be setting up a specific series to bet a side or even a series spread for an underdog. Could be a head-to-head play-in matchup. It could be even a player prop that you want to pound in a specific matchup. It's really anything, whatever the bettor wants to make. My bracket is the perfect fun to watch bracket. I just want to have fun as a viewer and enjoy basketball, at least in the West, and just watch some good playoff basketball for a couple months. So we're basically starting with where we're at in the standings. We're recording Wednesday afternoon, so there will be another game for most of these teams by the time you listen to this on Friday. But effectively, we got about 20 games left. We get to control the standings at the end of the regular season, given where we're at right now. So we can't just play make-believe. We're limiting ourselves to like maybe 5 games either way. 5's a lot still to make up with 20 to go, but about that range. So for example, Oklahoma City is locked as the 1 seed in both our brackets. They're way out ahead. That's just the way things are going to go. But then, like the 2 through 6 range in the West and different ranges in the East, 2 and 3 really. We're kind of play with the numbers there, see how we like things to go, and from there, kind of open to creativity. So along the way, we'll probably talk a little bit about big games coming up this weekend as well. Friday, Saturday, Sunday games that will be on national television. A couple of big ones that really come into play here as well. And I think that's enough. That's enough foreplay. Let's get into the brackets. We're going to start in the East because it's just not as fun in the East. There's a little bit less for us to talk about, to be honest. There's not as much malleability as the West. The West could really be anything at this point. You can build literally any bracket you want, and it makes sense in the West. The East, there's just not a lot of choices. So we're going to start in the play-in with kind of those 4 teams, and we'll do half the bracket each step from there. Remember, we don't get to decide who wins all the matchups. We're just really picking the 1 to 10 seeds, setting it up the way we hope it's going to go, and then kind of go from there. So, Jim, let's start with your East play-in. Give me your 7-8. Give me your 9-10. Remember, that's how the games go. 9-10 play each other for the right to try to play the loser of the 7-8 to get in. And just talk me through your East play-in. What is your ideal East play-in? This is what we come for.
I was going to say, this is how you set the bar. Like, you're like, I will clear this bar because we're going to start with the East play-in. The dregs of the dregs is only going to get better from here. I have in my play-in in the 9-10 Atlanta, Philadelphia, in the 7-8 Orlando and Miami. So the Philadelphia of it all, almost certainly not going to happen. They're technically, within striking distance now. Paul George picked up another injury. I think they shut him down. The Philly of it is actually, you picked your what's fun bracket. who cares about the East play-in? I think it would be hilarious if Philadelphia gets the play-in, loses their pick to Oklahoma City. It only strengthens a franchise that, deserves it with their smart decision making. So I'm not even going to really focus on that game. I just think it would be really funny if we got Philadelphia into the play-in, losing their draft pick. So what I will focus on is the other game. I would love to see Orlando host Miami. Miami is a team that, we talked about it when we did a podcast a couple weeks ago. I was interested in Miami to miss the playoffs. I still am interested in fading them. I'd love for them to have to go to Orlando. Orlando against the zone is kind of a, scary concept. That is not an offense that exactly lights up a zone. But I do think that Orlando is at home is a decent team and better than this Miami team for sure. I'd probably look at some Contavious Caldwell Pope props, which is, again, we are really starting with the ugliest of the ugly here. But he scored, he had 24 in their win against Miami a little ways back, because he can kind of be that zone buster. I think between Franz and Paolo, if it's a single game, I would love Orlando there. And I think what I'm really curious about, and I'll touch on this in a second in the first actual round of our playoff bracket here, is what is the market going to do with Miami? Because the market seems to be respecting Miami from a futures perspective right now that I think is pretty off. And then Miami always has that reputation, come playoff time of being, you don't want to face Miami. I hope that transfers over this year, because I will be playing off of that so hard. I have basically no faith in this Miami team. So as many, if they make the playoffs somehow, which I'll hate, we won't cash our to miss playoffs, but it will be nice because I'll get to bet against them, in a series and just keep pounding against them. So I'll have Orlando in the 7, beating the 8 seed Miami, and I will have Miami getting into the 8 seed, and we'll talk through why I'm hoping for that. I mean, I kind of hinted at it there, but that's my East play-in bracket shaking out from my side.
Yeah, like you said, started with a low bar here. And the reality is we're starting with 3 teams pretty well locked into the play-in. Like, you can bet at most books to make the play-in. You can't even bet Orlando or Atlanta. They're not even giving us like a minus a bajillion odds because they're so locked in. They're giving Miami as like a -4, 500 sort of range. They're basically assuming that as well. Those are the 3 teams. And then you kind of get to do dealer's choice for the 10 seed from there. You dealt Chicago out of the bracket. They're out of my bracket as well. We're looking for fun, so
yeah,
no real arguments.
We've seen enough of them in the play-in. It's the Chicago, inaugural, or not inaugural, the annual Chicago play-in tournament. We don't need it this year. We're all set without the hosts.
Yeah, well, I think you could make the same argument you did for Philly. That, like, wouldn't it be funny at Philly's expense for them to make it and lose the pick? Wouldn't it be funny for Chicago to build their entire franchise around making the play-in and then miss it to a team like Philadelphia, missing their star player anyway? So my fun bracket does not have Chicago in either, or Philadelphia. So here's how I'm going to do it. Nathaniel Hale once said, I regret I only have but one life to give for my country. I regret I can only drop Miami as low as the 9 seed. The rules have painfully dropped me in place where I can't take Miami all the way out of the play-in, but I want fun, and fun is not Miami. And I don't want to watch this team, and I want to watch them lose, or, not watch them lose, as it were. So Miami drops to my 9. That means Orlando, Atlanta in the 7, 8. Trey in a play-in game or 2. That's fun. I know I've been between the 2 of us this season. I'm kind of the Orlando hater. Of all these teams, Orlando's the one I most want in the actual bracket. Like, I think that they actually are intriguing enough for me to find out. I want to see the young guys. I want to see Paolo and Franz. Can they find offense? Paolo was great last year in the playoffs. He had some really big scoring games. I dumped on him a lot, but he was very, very good in that first series. Obviously, their defense is really good. Jonathan Isaac played a little bit more in the playoffs last year. I think were he to play more, he would be a clear all-defense guy, defensive player of the year candidate even. Maybe Suggs comes back. I don't know. Like, he's been ruled out, but he was ruled out and back in. I don't know. Like, you never know. But I feel like Orlando, Atlanta is interesting. I'm going to put Orlando as the 7 seed because they're the team that I want most in the bracket. So they'd have to lose 2 home play-in games. I believe a 7 seed has yet to not make out of the play-in. So Orlando, Atlanta. Then Miami is the 9. It's as far down as I can put them. Give me the Raptors. Give me Toronto as the 10 seed. Process elimination. Chicago doesn't deserve it. Philly, Miami is a hate watch. Like, you can't pay me to watch that play-in game. Brooklyn blows. Sorry, I just don't want Brooklyn in the play-in. All that's left is Toronto. I'm kind of intrigued by Toronto. I want to see what the heck they are. Scotty, RJ, quickly, maybe Ingram by then. Heaven knows if he'll finally actually play. I just think it's fun. Miami right now to miss the playoffs is plus 340. That's a bet that you and I gave out on our last podcast. I think the odds are longer now. I don't really understand it. Like I'm with you. It's the Miami aura, I guess. It's the Heat culture. I think Heat culture is playing in Golden State now. I think Heat culture is gone and dead. I still think that's a good bet. If you don't like the missed playoffs bet because you think you're going to win a play-in, how about this one? The Heat are minus odds to win the division now. You can bet Orlando plus 400 and Atlanta plus 350 as basically a not Miami division. You get them both for plus 137. If you want just the regular season version, you just need Miami to finish below one of those two teams, and that's the bet. So I don't know why Miami's getting so much respect here. The Raptors actually are near even odds to make the play-in now at a couple of books, but they're plus 320 at Bet365 if you got that one. So just as like an arbitrage on the market, I feel like that's a pretty good play. I think Toronto's probably going to end up tanking still. Like they just accidentally won 2 games when they're trying not to, but I think Toronto's fun. So in my fun bracket, Toronto gets in. Hopefully they beat Miami, just get them out of here. But I think I'd rather just have Orlando and Atlanta into the playoffs. So that's my play. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you on Toronto being one of the more fun teams. I'm really bummed. I was looking at a Toronto play-in bet, and I did that thing where I'm like, all right, I'm going to wait for the podcast. This was like a month ago. I think it was right around the All-Star break. I was like, I'm going to wait for the podcast and I'll give it out on the podcast. And then by the time I waited, it had disappeared because I think there was some smoke to like there may have even been pre-Ingram trade. There was something that I was seeing and it was like I think it was like plus 1,400. And I was like, oh, I'm intrigued by that. And then by the time I actually was going to bet it, it was gone. So, tales of missed CLV here. Really, we're like talking about our fantasy team's dreams in terms of what people care about. But the short story is I'm with you in being intrigued by Toronto and just thinking they're more fun than Miami or Philadelphia or even Brooklyn for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, like a hypothetical like Toronto, Orlando play-in for the last spot in the East, like that's fun. I want to watch that game for sure. It's just like leading the lamb to the slaughter after that. I think we're going to get to that part of the bracket now too. But for one game, 2 young teams, like, that's the madness of it all. The one-off play-in game, the one winner-take-all tournament game, just winning that for either of those franchises, I think is pretty big deal. Let's go to the 1 seed half of the bracket then. So we're out of the play-in. We're in the playoff now. We gave the people like 7 minutes on the East play-in to start off, giving the people what they want. So Cleveland is the 1 seed. They're locked in. They beat Boston over the weekend, that huge comeback, and basically more or less locked in the 1 seed. We had talked about maybe doing this a week ago, and I was kind of toying with would I jump Boston up to the 1? Well, now it's really off the table. So Cleveland's the 1 seed, but the big choice here is who do you want in the 4-5? Because it's basically Milwaukee, Detroit, Indiana. You've got to pick 2 of the 3, the way the bracket kind of sets up with the way the standings are in the East. So talk me through your half of the bracket with the 1 seed in the East.
So I did go with Cleveland, Miami, and I'll keep this very brief because we went long on the East play-in. we definitely got to be tighter than that. So I talked about earlier, I would want this matchup only because I'd want to take the Cleveland sweep. I would smash that number, and I think this Cleveland team would walk all over Miami. For the 4-5, I thought about a few different things. I think if our friend Joe is on here, he might want like a Knicks Pacers somehow and get a little revenge in the 3-6 or something. But I want the Bucks and Pacers. This is a pretty good rivalry. Local. They've had a little bit of history in the playoffs. They had a little history in the in-season tournament as well. And these teams are both pretty fascinating right now. This is one that I would be in kind of data collection mode for the end of the season. And it looks like it very well may be the matchup we get. Indy has looked like a new team since they started the season really slow. I think that long playoff run maybe was a little bit of tired legs start of the season. Tyrese Halliburton is looking like Tyrese Halliburton again. They look really strong. Milwaukee, on the other hand, is a team that you and I they're our preseason team to bet at their number out of the Eastern Conference. And I've had, there's been ups and downs, and I do think I'm more skeptical of their ceiling right now, but I also think that, when these Pacers and Bucks matchup last year, when Giannis was kind of questionable for the series, all of us at Action were kind of all over Indiana. We liked how they matched up. We liked the fact that Giannis was questionable. This year I want to see more. I almost think Milwaukee, even though their ceiling looks a little sketchier, they really aren't great against the top teams in the league. I actually think that their floor is a little bit higher. And I think that this is a series that, again, I want to see how this all plays out during the stretch run. But I think if Giannis is finally healthy at the postseason, I don't think I'm going to overthink it this year. I think it'll be likely on the Bucks side of this matchup, but I think it would be a really interesting matchup to really dive in on and, go into those matchups once healthy and see how those final couple matchups of the regular season play out. Probably leaning towards the Milwaukee end of it in the end.
Yeah, so Bucks Pacers, that was one that we liked last year. A couple of us even liked it a lot. I kind of wanted Giannis healthy. I like the Pacers if Giannis was healthy at a better price then. But, take the victories when you can get them. Sometimes you just got to get your pocket aces and take a profit and get out of there. So if the Bucks get the Pacers here and win, this Sunday night, one of the big games this weekend is Bucks Cavs. So that sets up a second round Bucks Cavs matchup for you. What do you think in that matchup? Is there something you'd look for Sunday night in that game?
Yeah, I'll keep an eye on it. I'll be honest, though, I really haven't. This is maybe a soft spoiler for how the rest of this podcast is going to go, but I'm in on Cleveland, man, and I don't think that they would even though I think Giannis would be the best player in the series, and historically that has been the side you want to be on. I think that this Cavs team, I think it's a different era. I think it's a lot harder to build out pieces around those superstars. In Cleveland, if we look at by BPM, BPM or EP, I think it's BPM. They have 4 of the top 16 players in the league this season. They have the top tier talent. I am incredibly high on Darius Garland. We talk about that specifically when we kind of get to kind of the ceiling of this Cleveland team. But I think that the Giannis of it all makes it interesting for sure. But I think I'd be going back to the well on Cleveland here and finding them in the conference finals with not too big of a sweat, to be honest.
Yeah, Cavs are 3-0 in the season series so far, but 2 of those wins were way back the first 10 games of the season, and the Cavs won twice by 1 possession, I think in back-to-back games. Probably should have given us a clue right off the bat how exactly the Cavs were going to go this season. It's been a long time since then. I like it's tough in that matchup because Giannis is going to be the best player in the court, and you can talk yourself easily into Dame being the second best player if Dame time is in there, and now you're giving the 2 best players on the court to the other team, but you're getting the next 4 best and then some in Cleveland as well. I think the Cavs are going to get their 3s in that matchup. Milwaukee, we know, is going to give them their shots, and that's going to maybe not go well for them. I think they'd be able to defend the 2s and defend Giannis between Allen and Mobley as much as anyone's going to be able to do probably. So, yeah, I think we're going to get in that series a shorter price on Cleveland than we should, given the strength of their metrics. But because it's so scary, it's going to be so scary to back Cleveland in that spot because of the Giannis of it all.
Can I hop
so yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Just to say, I think you can make the case. I think a case could theoretically be made for the Bucks having the top 2 players. I also think you could make the case for Cleveland having the best player, the way Donovan Mitchell has been playing this season. And with question with Giannis, we haven't seen it in the playoffs in a little bit. I think I would still come down to Giannis 1, but I think I would definitely have Mitchell as the second best player in that series. I think it would really he'd have to be hobbled, and Dame would have to be playing amazing for me to get to both of the top 2. And I think you could even go. I think the Garland Dame is almost a more interesting conversation. I could talk myself into Garland over Dame potentially. So I think, again, tipping my hand towards how high I am on these Cavaliers as a whole, I am not buying they haven't been to a finals, they haven't won a finals. That's never going to be something I'm overweighing, to be honest. So I think that you can cut it both ways, and that you could theoretically really do the player thing and be really high on Cleveland as well.
Yeah, so that's pretty spicy. I can't get there on Giannis versus Spida. It's a little too far for me. We haven't seen Giannis in the playoffs because we haven't seen Giannis in the playoffs. He's just not healthy. Yeah. So especially in the second round, I guess. So we'll see. We're 2 weeks in at that point. But yeah, I don't know if I can get there with you on that one. I can get there with you on the guards, especially considering in that matchup, you've got whoever Milwaukee has out there having to guard Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland, which is going to, buoy their side a little bit better than against the tough Cleveland defense. All right, my 1 seed bracket, I'll keep it pretty easy here. Cleveland versus whoever, don't really care. Probably in my scenario, it's Atlanta or Toronto. To me, that's a smash Cavs -2.5 series spread. It's just going to be pretty easy. Probably, escalator on the sweep as well. please God, not Cavs Magic. I can't do it again. That nearly broke me last year in the playoffs. I can't do 7 more games of that. My 4-5, I do have Indiana in there. I'm going Detroit. I'm going to give Detroit the 4 seed because, again, my bracket's just having fun. Detroit is fun. Detroit at home, a home series in the playoffs. Like, imagine the odds we would have had to be able to do that before the season is just unfathomable. And you get the Midwest rivalry, Detroit, Indiana. They're not so far apart. It's Cade and Hallie. They're going to be something for years to come here. Then the winner plays Cleveland. Like, that's just the Midwest in me, just all those kind of matchups right around. That just feels like something's starting to brew for longer term here out in the East. Detroit, Indiana, both top 10 in pace. I think Detroit would destroy Indiana on the glass and be a big problem on that part in the series. But yeah, I just think that's a really fun series. And in the East, we don't get a lot of fun choices. So this is the best fun way I wanted. Let me throw a bet out for you. Detroit right now, as we're recording, is 6-1 after the All-Star break. 2 of their next 11 games are against current playoff teams. By like top 8 seeds, 2 of their next 11. They've got a very soft schedule coming up. They're smoking hot right now. They're 45-1 to have the best record post All-Star break at DraftKings. 45-1 just to win like over a 25 game sample. They're going to have to keep winning. They're going to want to try to get the 4 seed and the 5, stay above the 6, stay out of the play-in. 45-1. What do you think?
I love it. I'm going to bet it right now because there's also the 2 best teams in basketball have such cushions that we have locked them into the 1 seed. So I don't think that they're going to hit the tank by any stretch, but both teams are starting to rest guys, just straight up rest, or like if someone's a little bit dinged up, let's shut them down. There's no, let's save people for the postseason. So if you're taking out the 2 best teams, kind of softly taking them out,
sure.
they're, and then, Boston, New York, I think would have cases. Denver's been playing very well, but I really like this, and Detroit does have a lot of motivation to move up, and they have looked outstanding. I think I'll be joining you on this for sure.
All right, let's check out the other half of the Eastern bracket. Kind of a formality at this point because you kind of know where this is headed. So let's go a little quickly through this side. But what do you like on the Boston, New York side of the bracket?
Yep. So I've got Boston, Orlando in my 2-7, and as resident Boston hater and Orlando lover, this seems like a perfect spot for me to be all over an Orlando series spread, maybe even talk myself into Orlando somehow taking out Boston. I can't get there. Orlando does have a win over Boston this year, but that was a game in which A, there was no Tatum, and B, almost as importantly, there was a Jalen Suggs. And you mentioned like maybe Jalen comes back. I think he's done. And my Orlando faith kind of ends when Suggs is done. So I would love to bet this one. 4-1 exact is just screaming my name in this series. Boston's going to give 1 away.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think Boston would kind of wipe the floor with Orlando. Now 4-1 might be kind of the baked in price given how much the market loves Boston. But if you get
here's the bet. It's not just 4-1. You got to go exact outcome. You got to go Orlando winning one of the first 2 in Boston and then losing out from there. That's the bet.
Boston, Orlando, Boston.
Yep. That's the one.
Yep. I think that's it. And then for the other half of it, I have Detroit and New York. Those are my 2 remaining teams. I think this would be a pretty fun series. And this is, if we're going to get a little spicy, I think this would be the place to get to take the upset. Detroit is very good against elite top teams. One of the best spread differentials against those top 10 teams in the league. Cade is averaging 29, 5, and 8 against the Knicks this season. They've won 2 of those 3 games. The road team has won each game, which fits that Detroit's as a road team has been excellent all season. Asar Thompson played only 1 of those games. Asar Thompson is going to be, to me, kind of like a Jonathan Isaac like last year, where they're kind of holding those minutes down all season to unleash it come postseason. Jalen struggled in some of these games against the Pistons a little bit, and I think that's partially because of Asar. He had to take 24 shots to get his 31 points. Now, he's Brunson, he's going to score, but if you can at least make him work, that does so much to kind of slow down the New York offense. So I would definitely be eyeing a series price. I probably would bet the series spread, but I think I would be betting Detroit. I think, gun to my head, I think I would pick New York. They just have such a high floor, and they are, despite their flaws, still a solid team. But I think Detroit would be very live at the number we would get them. And it could make for a fun little head-to-head with Delera as well. So that's always entertaining too.
Definitely entertaining. All right, my side of the bracket. The only thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the Knicks as the 2 seed, not because I think they're going to be the 2 seed, but because I want a fun bracket. And if I want the Knicks to have any chance to do stuff in the bracket, I want them as the 2 seed. So my 2 seed is the Knicks, and then they're playing either Orlando or Atlanta. I prefer Atlanta in that specific matchup just because we get Trey back to Madison Square Garden. We know that that's fun. But, I would rather have Boston, Orlando, or New York, Atlanta. But I don't care enough about Boston, Orlando to shoehorn Boston in here. And I need the Knicks to have home court in the next round against the Celtics to have any real chance. And I need the Knicks to not face the Bucks. That's not a matchup that they want to have either. That leaves Boston as a 3 seed facing the Bucks. And here's where I'm at in the Celtics. I still think this is the team to beat. I don't think that they're as good as we thought they were right now at the start of the season. I'm a little worried about the big men. Al Horford is looking pretty washed to me. I thought he was real good still all the way through the playoffs last year. And then there's a lot on Porzingis, who's been great, but just is not healthy and doesn't stay healthy. So I'm setting up the Celtics to have to earn it this year. They earned it last year. They got to hang the banner, but the path broke every which way their direction. I am making it not their path this year. They've got to face the Bucks here. So you got to start with healthy Giannis at the start of the playoffs and Dame. So that's purposely they're playing them right away when we know Milwaukee should be healthy. Major shot variance series. Boston's going to get their threes up. I think that goes at least 6. I think Milwaukee pushes them right away. Again, best player in the series with Giannis, the way that he's playing at all times. Give me Giannis over Donovan Mitchell. Give me Giannis over Tatum. No question. I'm still taking Giannis, especially, again, with the big men possible questions there. And then Boston has to go on the road to New York in the next round as well, which they're still going to crush New York. But I'm going to bet Boston because they're on the road. I'm going to get a little better price there. And I think I could see Boston taking both games in Madison Square Garden and just shutting things down real quick there. But it's a good opportunity for me as a bettor, and betting is fun also. So I did think of that in my bracket as well. So I still actually am setting up my bracket as a futures bettor to want to bet Boston. I've created a harder path for them, which I'm hoping is now priced in to the Boston price. And maybe we go 1-1 against Milwaukee and I can get a better price then. Or maybe they go 1-1 or down 0-1 in New York and I get a better price then. So I think I still want the Boston futures path. That was kind of the big picture is I want Boston's path to bet. I want the Cavs in the Eastern Conference Finals against presumably Boston. And I just wanted the Pacers Pistons fun in the first round. So that was kind of my big picture East. Your big picture East seems to me to be setting up for Cleveland. You're all in on Cleveland. Are you betting Cleveland at this point?
I am indeed. So I'll circle back real quick to, so I sent through New York, even with some hesitation there. I did have them going past the Pistons. I did send through Boston. And I will say, I like your concept of, how can we possibly make this a test for Boston? I do think that we're getting to the point, these stats kind of go viral, right? And we've got the Knicks against the top 3 teams with the minus 200 point differential, whatever. It's almost gotten to the point where it's a little bit, I think it's being overweight a little bit, because if you cut it slightly different, they're very good against the teams in that next tier, Memphis, Denver. So I those type of teams they are good against. This is a good Knicks team. I almost think that it swung too much and there's almost a little bit too much skepticism right now. But overall, I would go with Boston in that series. I would hammer Tatum props. When he sees Cat on the perimeter, he is licking his chops. He is all over it. He's had a ton of success. But sending through Boston to Cleveland, again, I don't want to reiterate too many things. I said it on the last podcast you and I did. I've said it on multiple future days. I believe in this Cleveland team, and part of it is the price difference. We are getting a massive gap between Boston and Cleveland in the market right now, when I think it should be about a coin flip. And I do think that gun to my head, I think this second I would take Cleveland. I am a big Boston skeptic, but Cleveland's gonna have home court. I walk through how good their players have been this season, even if you don't believe that Spida is better than Giannis, but Spida better than Tatum is a lot easier sell. Sure. I think there's a lot to love with this Cleveland team, and probably the biggest differentiator between me and kind of the average bettor is that I always am going to underweight the experience thing. I probably go too far the other direction and almost underweigh it to a degree. But this Cleveland team, mean, Mitchell has really proven it in the postseason. Last year, he was averaging 30 points a game. We've seen him have this success time and time again in the postseason. He's absolutely cooked Boston this season. He's cleared 30 points in every single game. He went for 40-1. I just think that they match up really well with Boston. I think it would be an amazing series, but A, they're going to have home court, and B, if their path is a little bit easier, I think that only helps as well. So I keep coming back to Cleveland, and I will be sending them through my theoretical Eastern Conference bracket.
So my last question on the East here for you, do you bet Cleveland right now, or do you wait for Cleveland-Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals? Because otherwise you're betting on, well, Boston could lose to New York. Boston could get upset, and now Cleveland is a much bigger favorite. Do you wait and want Boston so that you're getting even better price than maybe Boston in the conference finals?
I am a Boston hater. I don't think I'm that much of a hater. I will be adding now. I'll add it to the start of the. I'm not going to go crazy ever, but I sure. have added some. I will add some now. I'm going to just keep adding along the way. Joe is going to get cut off this podcast for that number of times we bring his name up. But I love the way he does, where whenever he gets bonus bets, he puts them towards building a portfolio. I really love that as a way of building out a portfolio that's basically free throughout the season. I've been doing that, throwing on Cleveland and just building up that Cleveland portfolio kind of throughout the year leading up to it. And then if we get that Boston series, we'll have, the most information possible. And, I think I'll probably still be on the Cleveland side, but the more information you collect, things can change. But I'm guessing I will be on the Cleveland side of things this postseason.
All right, well, let's head west. Let's go to the West play-in. The entire West playoff after the 1 seed is basically a choose-your-own adventure. You could do just about anything you wanted out here. So a lot more options this way. Tell me about your West play-in in the bettor's ideal bracket.
Okay, I'm going to make this the last time I mention Joe. I literally just brought him up. My 10 seed is Portland because I want Joe to cash his 55-1 to get Portland into the play-in. Loved that absolutely sicko bet. I tried to talk him out of it, and now I wish I had it. So I've got Portland versus Minnesota, and then in the 7-8, I have Sacramento-Houston. The Minnesota-Portland, that 10 seed, it really is a very weak thing. I think there's going to be a pretty big gap from whoever grabs 9 to whoever grabs 10. I slotted Sacramento up into the 7-8 game because I wanted to be able to bet them later. So I have them versus Houston. And ironically, even though I will probably be looking to fade the Kings in general, I'm actually kind of intrigued by the Kings in this specific matchup. Houston's also a team that I'm looking to fade in general. And I think that this would be it would kind of go down to the wire, and I'm going to trust DeRozan and the Kings offense in a clutch situation a lot more than Houston, who's pretty sketchy in those close crunch time offensive minutes. Van Vliet's hit a couple of big shots, and he does have that a bit to his name, but he's also been really banged up the second half. I'm not even sure what we'll see of him in terms of what percent healthy he is come postseason. So I'm going to do a little magical realism in a second here, but I have Sacramento and Houston in the 7-8 with Sacramento winning, and then I've got Minnesota and Portland from the 9 and 10. All
right, so I have actually one of the same matchups you have, but I don't think Joe's even going to sweat his bet out. I got Portland into the 8 seed. Woo! We're having fun out here. I want Portland safely, and I want Portland having 2 shots in the play-in. I do like that Portland-Minnesota matchup, though. So in my fun bracket, Minnesota's the 7 seed. I am a Timberwolves fan. I can't push them too far down after all. Chauncey comes home. Bring home Chauncey back to Minnesota for the revenge spot. The Blazers get 2 shots in the playoffs. Portland sort of is looking Minnesota-y a little bit, the way they're playing. Like Donovan Clingan as the Rudy Gobert. I'm interested in Portland right now. Here's their numbers since January 19th. I know you know this, but 15-6, 4th best record in the league. Net rating of +8, 6th best. The 2nd best on defense, above league average on offense. Donovan Clingan, 105 defensive rating on the court. Toumani Camara, I think, just won Defensive Player of the Month in the West. And I knew that defense could be good with those two. They're number 1 in free throw rate offensively during that stretch. They're top 5 in offensive rebounds. I think Clingan actually, he's not going to win Rookie of the Year because he's not putting up the numbers. But I think the impact he's having with their winning right now is a big deal. Here's the problem. We're recording this on Ash Wednesday. Tonight, Portland plays at Boston. So by the time this comes out, Portland might have lost by 40, and everyone's like, oh, yeah, right, Portland, we remember. And after Boston, they play at Oklahoma City, then the Pistons, then at the Warriors, then the Knicks. So they might just go 0 for 5, and then this is over, and it gets real ugly. But it's all right. We're having fun. And what if they beat Boston? And what if they really go that direction? So I think Portland, I think they're interesting. And I'm not that interested in some of these teams down at the bottom. So out of the play-in for both of us is Dallas. I just think that might be over. Dallas is minus 700 to miss the playoffs. Are you betting the minus 700?
I'm not going to lay that juice, but I certainly think that the juice is accurate. And what the karma police came and knocked on the door really quick in Dallas and bumped them from any sort of reasonable stand in this season.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to lay a minus 700 because it's me, but I think it's over for them. My 9-10 is Clippers and Suns. I'm getting the Kings out of here. I have no interest in the Kings. I want a fun bracket, and I do not need the Kings in my fun bracket. I want stars. So I want stars to have to earn it. Give me Kawhi. Give me KD and Booker. Give me James Harden, I guess. Are we counting him still? Maybe Norman Powell. Probably not. No, that's over. Give me the stars, but you're in the 9-10s. You got to win twice now. And you got to win twice just to get crushed by the Thunder. So give me the stars, and let's find out if you really want it. KD, you really want to go back to Oklahoma City? You want to go there and then just get crushed in 4 games? Is that what you want? I want to see it. I want to see you actually find out if you want to do this thing. So here's a few bets for you based on my bracket. Clippers to miss the playoffs, 2-1. What do you think?
Nah, I'm actually a little bit higher on the Clippers. I will say I got quite a kick out of you saying that you wanted fun and then choosing this Suns team, which looks like it might be like a 7 circle of hell. If you wanted to send someone you hated to the Suns, they look like they're having about as little fun as possible.
This is my version of your Philadelphia pick. I'm having fun by forcing Phoenix to have to keep playing. That's truly what I'm doing with the fun pick here.
I love that. And then
we only have to watch him one game.
You're such a Devin Booker hater. You didn't even list in the stars. You said Norm Powell and you didn't say Devin Booker. I don't know if that was.
I said KD and Book. I said it.
Okay. I thought you left him off. I was like, wow, the hate really goes deep with Brandon on Devin Booker.
I looked and I can't find it anywhere. The coward books won't even give us. I'm going to take Joe's bet. We're saying his name again. I didn't get the bet to make the play-in for the Blazers. Give me Blazers to make the playoffs. Give me the real bet here. But I can't. It's not available. They're not even listing odds for it because it's so ridiculous. If they're making the play-in, why not give them a chance? I'm giving them 2 chances in mine. They are still 13-1 to make the play-in at DraftKings. Okay, 2 more for you. I gave you Detroit best post All-Star break record. Portland's 5-2. They're 1,000-1 best record. What do you think?
1,000-1 is a tempting number. I think I'll go with the Detroit side of it, especially with you rattling off the 5-game trip that Portland has upcoming. I think I'll stick with the Detroit one singularly. All
right, last one. In my scenario, Portland gets into the play-in, but Phoenix does too. So both of those together, you can bet at DraftKings 48-1 to make the play-in. I think that's a little nibble. Just, it's Dallas dropping out of the play-in, which the odds are still pretty confident on Dallas staying in the play-in. I'd love to just find a Dallas no play-in sort of bet. And so that, I haven't seen that, but that's a way to do that. And then you just need both of them to get in. So now you need the bottom to fall out for somebody, Sacramento, whoever it is from there. DraftKings also has minus 105 on any play-in team to reach the second round. Can I get a no on that? Can I get like a plus 110 on that bet? Because it's not happening in the East. You're not beating Boston or Cleveland, and you're not beating Oklahoma City. So the only way is whatever is the 7 seed against the 2 seed. And sure, that's possible, but not at even odds. So give me that bet. That's the bet I want.
Yeah, I love that. We might have to pester the books to post that because that is definitely an intriguing play. I think there's basically one route to it, which I'll talk through actually in a little bit in my magical realism bracket that I will be debuting. But yeah, I mean, around even odds, that would be a hammer.
All right, so out of the play-in, let's get to the bracket. Let's go to the 1 seed side of the bracket. Of course, Oklahoma City locked into the 1 seed, the one thing we didn't have any control of. Talk me through your half of the bracket in the perfect bracket for bettors.
Yeah, I didn't want to do this too much, but I did do it here because if you've been following Future Jays, and especially my plays in particular, the Thunder were the team I loaded up on futures-wise in the preseason. So I wanted to give them at least one round of kind of like the dream matchup. So I slotted, even though the Kings were my lean in the Sacramento Houston play-in matchup I did a little bit of magical realism. Like I said, I slotted Houston up to 7. I bumped Sacramento back down to 8 because I want Oklahoma City to have the easiest path possible. So I have in this magical world, the Thunder sweeping the Kings. I would have no issue betting that sweep. The Beam, the great home court and everything, but the Kings are not even in the same atmosphere as the Thunder. And then for
And, the 4-5.
Yeah, for the 4-5, this is kind of my leftovers. It's funny because it's two interesting teams, but nothing about it was like, oh, I want to bet this specific thing. I have a couple player prop things maybe for it, but it was the two leftover teams at the end. It was the Warriors and the Clippers. The Warriors have looked outstanding since Jimmy came to the Bay. The Clippers have just kind of been chugging along. They've been very good all season. I would be interested by a few of these matchups. Like Chris Dunn has kind of quietly turned himself into one of the premier defenders in the NBA. He was always a very strong defender, but he seems to have gotten better on that end and decent enough on the offensive end that he's kind of the ceiling that I think some people imagined when he came into the league. So it's been kind of cool to see. I think he would really be a tough matchup for Steph. Steph's going to get his buckets no matter what, but I think that would really be a fun matchup. You'd have Jimmy on Kawhi or Kawhi on Jimmy. That would be really fun. Seeing if playoff Kawhi is still there, seeing if playoff Jimmy is still there. Two guys who are, historically great in the postseason, just going at each other. And then the final one that would be interesting is Draymond versus Zubac. Zubac rebounds could go potentially very hard in this series if we got that. He posts some insane rebounding numbers against the Warriors. Draymond struggles a little bit in that matchup. I would ultimately lean towards the Warriors in this matchup. I'm pretty high on the Warriors in general. We'll talk through if we go one layer beyond against the Thunder. But I think that this would be a really fun matchup with a couple of pretty interesting player prop angles if we did get these two teams.
Yeah, I think those prop angles are really fascinating. So that would be a pretty interesting series. Not a series I really consider at all, but I think you sold it pretty well. Here's my bracket, my fun bracket. I'm going the opposite with you in Oklahoma City. I want them to have to be pushed right away. I want them to have to actually play somebody and show that they're real. I'm a little I understand all the metrics. I know all the numbers are great. About half of their net rating margin is turnover margin. And when you play real playoff teams in real playoff settings, are you going to keep never turning it over and turning the other team over and over and over again? It's like +6 out of their +12 net rating in the 4 factors. So I want to see them push right away. So in my bracket, hopefully it's not Portland. I know I want Portland in theory, but not really. I'd take Oklahoma City in 3 in that series. Probably it's either Minnesota or the Clippers. And I feel like I could talk myself into one of those teams +2.5 in the series, maybe to steal a game and at least push a second game. I just want to see Oklahoma City pushed right away. And then my other matchup, this is the pumpkin spice latte decision that I made in my bracket. This is basic Brandon, basic NBA fan, having fun. I need it. I need it one more time. LeBron and Steph. I need Lakers, Warriors. I wanted to set up my bracket to go Lakers, Warriors in round 2, but I'm not confident enough in both teams winning to get to round 2. So I'm just giving them to each other in round 1 because we get Steph, LeBron one more time, but now we get Butler and Luka. It's a different Steph, LeBron than we've had before. I need it. I think it's a fun matchup. It's two teams that, frankly, I think are pretty clearly top 4 in the West. So I'm kind of loading up 3 of the top 4 in the West, I think, playoff version into this half of the bracket. I'm giving Oklahoma City a test. I want Oklahoma City tested in round 1. And I actually think I could be talked into the Lakers being the toughest test for Oklahoma City matchup-wise. I'm not really buying the Lakers. I think their number 1 defense since the All-Star break versus their very league average offense, that's not the thing we thought was coming here. So I'm a little skeptical there, but we know how the Lakers draw the generational whistle. The Thunder have the 3rd highest free throw rate defense. That seems problematic to me. We're going to get a lot of Luka and LeBron free throws. The Thunder also have the number 1 3-point defense, which is wasted on the Lakers, who don't shoot threes anyway. So I think it's interesting. You get Dort versus Luka in that matchup. So I think that's interesting. I think it sets up a really fun second round matchup. I think it's a fun half of the bracket, and we're not going to get too many more shots at LeBron and Steph. So I had to do it, and I had to make sure we got it. They're rested. It's round 1. Let's go.
I mean, I think Adam Silver is going to do everything in his power to make sure that we get that matchup at some point. And the first round does seem the safest way with a pretty deep West. I personally went with, so I've got the Thunder and Warriors is my second round matchup. And honestly, I am, again, got Thunder's futures out the wazoo. Really do love them as a regular season team. I think I have more doubts about the Thunder than I do about the Cavs, ironically. And my doubts are not experience. They are not as much size. So I do think size is an interesting thing that can be poked at times with them. It's once again, it's will their shooters make all the threes that they're making in the regular season? I think that the team does great at getting those guys looks. I also think that, even though I loved Lou Dort and will try to convince you to come over to the island for forever, I do, I think that number will drop in the postseason. So I think that they are gettable. And if we get this Thunder Warriors second round matchup, it might be a time for me to soft cash out some of my Thunder. I want to make sure I'm still, coming out on top, but I probably will put a future on the Warriors if the bracket breaks this way, because I'm intrigued by this Warriors team. They're flawed, but this is a league in which flawed teams, I think, are going to go pretty far. In my mind, a flawed team won the title last year. So I think we are past the era of these super teams who, it's kind of obvious what we're going to get in the end. And it's just a matter of, who's superstars hardest at the end. This Warriors team looks very good. And I think that they beat the Thunder twice this year without Jimmy Butler. They beat them in a game where Shea had 52. They provide a little bit of a tough matchup against the Thunder. So I will be very interested. Again, kind of like the New York Detroit thing. I think gun to my head, I would go OKC, but it's a series in which I would potentially cash out some of my OKC futures if they, had proven enough value that I could, bet some Warriors and still be looking good if OKC came out on top.
Yeah, I'm bummed. We recorded right after the Luka trade, and I was the one guy that said, I'm betting the Lakers. I'm getting my futures ticket on the Lakers. When it comes to the playoffs, Luka and LeBron, I'm going to want to have that ticket. I'm bummed that I didn't follow my instinct and do the same thing with the Warriors when they added Jimmy, and they were even a longer price. And like what I really want now is, could I get a bet on Warriors or Lakers in the Western Conference Finals? Can I build that somehow to give me one of those teams just like turning back the clock and making a run? I just feel like, especially depending on how the bracket breaks, especially we haven't got to the Nuggets, but if they fall in to the Oklahoma City side of the bracket, and that was initially the bracket I wanted to build, was let me just put Lakers and Warriors on the non-Thunder, non-Nugget side of the bracket and give them that path. They have to earn it here in my scenario. But yeah, I just feel like one of those teams might have a throwback run in them still. So to the other half of our bracket, to kind of finish out our perfect brackets here, we both have Denver in this side, we both have Memphis in this side, and we both have Houston here. So talk me through your 2-3 side of the West bracket closing us out.
Yeah, the only team I don't overlap with you on is I do have the Lakers here as the 2 seed. I want them going up against the Rockets in the first round. Again, I had the Rockets potentially losing to the Kings, did a little flip-flop and got the Rockets in the 7 seed. I would love my Rockets to miss playoffs, super long number to cash, but I think a fair backup plan would be to get to see this series and to get to see Tari Eason and Amen Thompson on Luka and LeBron. I think that is about as I didn't build too many like fun things. I wanted to bet things. But I'll tell you what I would bet in this series. I would bet the Lakers to win by 1 to 5 points every single night because it just screams Lakers by 3. A weird whistle down the stretch. Or the Rockets getting a little bit tight down the stretch offensively. But man, it would be such a pleasure to watch those two guys guard those other two guys. Again, Amen and Tari on Luka and LeBron. It's kind of a nightmare matchup for the Lakers. I was kicking around ideas with Matt Moore because he's so good with this matchup type stuff. He also brought up the point that the Lakers, I think, will struggle a little bit against more balanced offenses. I think that's something that we see in Houston. There's no real head of the snake. It's kind of 100 different options. I think that could give them some struggles as well. I would put LA through again, but on a series spread or game to game spread. Again, hitting those tight Laker wins, I think would be the play. But it would be just an incredible watch to have in the first round and a fun first test for the Luka LeBron Lakers in the playoffs.
Yeah, Houston is a team I don't really believe in, but I want them in the playoffs because I want to see it. I want to see what happens. I want to see these young guys. I want to see them have their shot here. And I think, too, I probably want to bet it as well. So that would definitely be a fun matchup. Who's left then in your 3 versus 6?
Denver, Memphis. This is the team I want to bet, the team I want to fade. So I had to put them together. I really want to bet Denver come postseason. I'm be betting them many different ways. We'll kind of see in the next round as well. And Memphis, I think is a paper tiger. They've been keeping their minutes low all season. I think that would be the case for Memphis. They're going to be theoretically fresh, but Memphis doesn't stay fresh. They're all banged up anyways. Jaren just rolled an ankle that's like a week to week type thing right now. Denver is one of the few teams that can keep up with Memphis in terms of transition offense. That's such a big thing for Memphis. That also dries up a little bit in the postseason. And then, Denver's offense is a little bit more, dry up proof in having Jokic. He's had a lot of success against Memphis. So I would be all over this. I'd want Denver. I'd want Denver Escalators. And so I had to put these two together. Then in the next matchup, Denver, LA, had to get this as well. This is the one I wanted to, a little bit see, but also bet. I would definitely be on the Denver side of things. Less Lakers skepticism and more that I think that this is a matchup that it's a little bit different. The players are a little bit different. There's no Anthony Davis. That's a big factor for sure. But I do think that Jokic against this Lakers team, rolling out Jackson Hayes at the center or, small ball during the Lakers would struggle to have answers for this. Luka and LeBron would, do great offensively. And I think the Denver defense would struggle to slow down the Lakers at times. But as long as Jamal Murray is even, a reasonable facsimile of himself, I think it would be a Denver side of things for sure, setting up a Denver OKC series that we get a little preview at this weekend, actually.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know if I need Denver, LA again. I called that the Fast and the Furious franchise. Like we've seen so many movies and they all end the same way. I don't know if I need it anymore. My fun bracket actually goes exactly against what I want as a bettor here. My 3-6 is Memphis as a 3 seed, Houston as a 6 seed. To me, if I'm betting, that's not fun because I want to fade both of those teams in the playoffs. So as a fun bettor, as someone that loves the young teams and wants to see teams that are fun, running, getting up and down the court, give me the two teams I don't believe in against each other and let them play because I think it pits them evenly. They both rely on turnovers and fast breaks, like you said, as a thing that doesn't always translate to playoffs. Memphis is pretty reliant on free throws. They both rely on depth. That's another area that doesn't necessarily translate to playoffs, but maybe it does if it's against each other. I just think neither of those teams are one I believe in. They're both teams that I definitely would be all over Denver versus Memphis in that series. Memphis, Houston, I don't think I'm betting that series. Like I'm asking Matt Moore if I can not preview that series because I don't know what my pick is going to be. But it's a fun one. I'd be really excited to watch it. And then that leaves Denver as my 2 seed, hopefully going against my number 7 seed Minnesota, assuming they take care of Portland. Again, I don't really need Denver, Portland. I think we know how that one would go. But Wolves Nuggets rematch. That's fun. The Wolves are a tough team for the Nuggets, but no Cat this year. He was really good at times in that series last year. But I think particularly the Nuggets have the lowest 3-point attempt rate in the league still, and the Wolves are crushing on 3-point rate, offense and defense. So I think just the math alone gives Minnesota a real shot in that series. But I also think Jokic probably, comes through, and I would still like Denver, but that feels like a Minnesota series spread sort of bet in that series. And ultimately, this kind of gives me a nice setup on just I just like watching Denver in the playoffs. And so I want to see Denver. I think Denver against either Memphis or Houston is a fun series. That I still get that one, I guess. I still get that series in the second round, so I can bet that one later. I think my version sets up Denver futures. Probably you would love to bet Jokic futures and Denver futures in this version of bracket where they'd get Memphis or Houston in the second round. And I think as long as Portland didn't make the playoffs in my bracket, I just think every matchup we get, like every version of every matchup is just a very fun matchup. And maybe that's just the West. Like it's hard to be too upset about the bracket you get in the West going forward. So that is my fun bracket. Let's go big picture here to wrap up in the next couple of minutes here. So big picture, Jim, you made your perfect bracket. What are some of your biggest takeaways here for listeners?
I think the biggest takeaway is one that I've kind of been all over the past month is Cleveland. I didn't finish out the bracket, but I'll do it quickly here. I'll say that I would have Denver and OKC, and this is one you talked about. You referenced Denver, Minnesota. That is a tough matchup. That was one of the ones that Matt highlighted for me in terms of tough matchups for Denver.
Yep.
I'd be pretty intrigued by this Denver OKC matchup. Again, with a little bit of OKC skepticism, I think it would really pivot on what Jamal Murray we got. Now, he hasn't been as good, actually, by the advanced numbers this season as last season, which would make me, again, this is going to be boring. In this betting bracket, I'm going to go Cleveland OKC in the finals. The 2-1 seeds. What's shocking, amazing, tons of value out there. But I'll go with the 2-1 seeds. And I'm going to go with Cleveland. I think that this comes down to something that I keep thinking about with this Cleveland team. I'm going to pick Cleveland over OKC. And I think, to me, the trust in big moments, ironically, even though, I say I underweight experience, right? But now I'm weighing that I trust Darius Garland. I really do, even though they do not have any finals experience whatsoever. I would take Darius Garland in the finals today over any player other than Shea. Shea and Donovan Mitchell, I kind of trust both of those guys at the top. There's not a second guy on OKC I trust, and that can rear its head against Denver. That could rear its head against the Warriors, but I think they're good enough to get through those matchups. It's, I think, around the time of the finals against a team like Cleveland, where they have two guys that I really trust. I trust Garland in these big moments. I even think Mobley is a decent player in those moments as well. My big picture takeaway is that I'm all over Cleveland. I last year was anti-Boston. That didn't work out. We'll see if the anti-Boston of a different flavor in just being super high on Cleveland this year. In part, just in comparison to the market. I think the market really has a lot of skepticism that I'm not there with. So I think my biggest takeaway is that Cleveland is the team for me again.
Cleveland rocks. We got that one last weekend. Cleveland, Boston. We had already seen so many close games between them this year. We saw the ginormous Boston, 25-3 lead or something. And then we saw the rest of the game play out. So yeah, that definitely, to me, the fun bracket in the East is not really all that fun. It's still the East, but I need the Cleveland-Boston matchup when we get there. You mentioned Oklahoma City, Denver. We get that one on Sunday. That's the Sunday game we're getting. Maybe conference finals preview for both of us. I think that's kind of the direction that we end up heading in our brackets. So that is a fun game on Sunday for sure. Definitely one to keep an eye on.
I want to see Jamal Murray. I want to see Jamal Murray in that game because he's definitely a guy who can kind of, he could come alive in the postseason, but then last season he didn't look at. So, this maybe we aren't overread into one game, but I definitely want to see how he looks against the Thunder this weekend.
I would say, too, I want to see Oklahoma City defend Jokic in that game. I know nobody really can defend Jokic, but I love Chet, I love iHeart, but I love Jokic, and that's a different thing altogether. And can you do that? Can Oklahoma City come up with enough non-Shea offense in that game? The other big game this weekend, Lakers-Celtics Saturday night. I know Matt Moore is just going to see that game and instinctively bet Lakers-Celtics exact outcome in the finals one more time. It's just happy, the nihilist feeling of it all, of Lakers-Celtics one more time. And frankly, I don't know that it's that impossible at this stage. The Celtics obviously are favorites in the East, and the Lakers, we're saying, are definitely at least top 4 in the West. My bracket just wants Celtics, Cavs in the East, and then some version of Oklahoma City, Denver, hopefully against each other. And then just give me one run from either the Lakers or the Warriors. Give me a throwback to push, I need to see the changing of the guard. And I think the guard has been changed, but one more time for old time's sake. And, the guard's already changed a little bit because we already got in Butler and Luka to kind of stir the pot a little bit with those teams. So that's my fun. And yeah, we gave you some futures bets.
Finals matchup.
My finals matchup, I still just think Boston is a cut above. I can't quite get there with you on Cleveland. So I'm going to go Boston in the East. And I think I just want to see Boston, Oklahoma City. At the end of the day, I want to have fun, but I just think those two teams on paper are the best teams. And so I want Oklahoma City, Denver in my Western finals, because if it's one of those two in Boston, then I'm going to be pretty hyped for the finals either way. And I'll be pretty excited about the matchup. Jokic against Boston, I think would be a real fun to watch as well. So I think that's my fun outcome. But really, I'm Doctor Stranging this. Whatever, as long as I've set up my final 4, I'm going to be pretty content with whichever version came out of it. So that was kind of my theory on making my bracket. So That's it. We gave you some plain bets. We gave you some playoff bets, gave you some long shots, some talk about the weekend games. There'll be a Friday Buckets podcast with just the regular best bets for the weekend as well. We built it. We built the perfect NBA playoff bracket. 2 of them. We built you 2. One for bettors, one for viewers. My thanks to Jim Turvey. Don't forget to download and check out the Action Network app. Check out the Action Network Discord. You'll find a link in the description. And be sure to follow and subscribe at Buckets for daily best bets, future Jays, future Friday, and more here and at YouTube. That's it. We'll see you next Friday on Futures Friday. Let's get buckets.